Chapter 6, A Love Story. 10 years ago in New York City, Dan met Beth and they fell in love. He was 28 and working, and she was 21 and tending bar to put herself through nursing school. A few months into their dating, she came home one night and he said he wasn't feeling well. She was exhausted and just figured he just needed to sleep, so they went to bed. So he was trying not to bother her, but finally he woke her up and said, "I think something is really wrong." They went off to the hospital. A few hours later, he was on life support, and she was being asked questions. Too many questions. Questions that people don't usually ask during the first months of dating. She tells the story so much better, but she has such a sense of humor about it. So they asked her for his parents' phone number, his insurance information, if he had any allergies. She had to tell him, "Listen, I'm his girlfriend, but we've only been dating for a few months. Last week we were exploring our relationship and getting to know each other, and it was all new, falling in love, and now he's dying on life support." So Dan found out that he had a rare congenital heart disorder that would worsen over time and either lead to death or to needing a transplant. But love is love, and in time they got married. She did become a nurse, and they had 2 children. They started saving money for the day they knew would come for his transplant. But as they say now, it's never enough. For 10 years, he was in and out of the hospital. In the first few years of their marriage, he was able to work. But then when things became too difficult for him, he was forced to go on disability. Their love for each other and their family never weakened. It definitely was tried at times, but his illness made them both determined to live as normal a life as possible. So now here it is 10 years later. His doctors in New York told him that his condition had worsened, and if he wanted to live, he needed to go out west to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and wait for a new heart. So they had 2 young children at this time, and one had special needs, and they're both in school, so moving them was out of the question. It's just not an option. It was really, really important to them to try to keep the kids on a normal routine, even though there's nothing normal about getting a new heart from somebody. Beth kept working as he moved out here to Southern California to wait for a heart. They realized they couldn't afford for him to live near the transplant center because the rents around here are just too high. They figured if he could live further out a ways and deal with the drive in to the clinic while waiting for his new heart to come in, that would be the way to go. So he's 38 now and she's 31. It's a lot for a young couple to endure. However, they had made the decision early on that they were a team. Over the years, friends and family had helped with fundraisers for this moment, but after years of being ill, unless you're extremely wealthy, the financial aspect of transplant takes hold. How does one pay for 2 rents or a rent and a mortgage somewhere else? We hear time and time again that no matter how prepared you are, no one is prepared for the emotional drain, for the weight, for the stress of not knowing if the money is going to run out. But back to our love story. Okay, so Dan moved out to California with his mom to get established, while Beth stayed in New York to take care of the 2 children and keep working. It turned out that he didn't need to find a place to live right away because when he got to Cedars to meet the doctors, he was so sick that he was admitted immediately, instructed to wait for his heart in the hospital. So Beth spent the next 5 months flying back and forth from coast to coast. Months went by waiting in that hospital bed. The money kept going out for bills, co-pays on insurance, and the travel expenses as she worked less and less hours so that she could travel more to be with him. At one point, he became too ill to be on the list. He was on the list, off the list, on the list again, off the list again. It went like this for weeks. They prayed for patience and to remember to take things one day at a time and to not lose hope. One day at midnight, Ava's phone rang, and it was Dan, and he was really excited and anxious. He said, "I got a heart. I go into surgery in a few hours. My wife is getting on a flight. She found family to look after the kids. She won't be here before I go in, but her best friend is here with me from San Diego. She had driven up. You had told me to ask for help when the time came closer, and now it's close. This is what I need most right now. My wife is amazing, and this has been so hard on her. Could Ava's heart get her a hotel room for the first night near the hospital so she doesn't have to make the long drive to our friend's apartment in Long Beach, an hour away? Now that's love. That's all he was worried about, really, was that she had a place to stay on the first night right by the hospital. So we got her a room, and we got her some gas and food cards to get her situated. And then we were able to get him a grant for 3 months of housing post-transplant within a few minutes of the hospital. Dan got his heart, and he was out of the hospital in 10 days. He's recovering really, really well, and he already feels 1,000 times better. And they are so happy, and they're so fortunate to have each other. I would always hear them say, "We'll figure it out." Well, they did. They know the journey has just taken a new turn, and they plan to watch their children grow up and to grow old together. Ava's heart was so happy to provide this family with 3 months of housing post-transplant, a special night in a hotel for his wife when she first arrived, food and gas cards, friendly faces of support, and a toothbrush. We are in contact with them all the time, and they are doing really, really well. To quote Khalil Gibran, "March on, do not tarry. To go forward is to move toward perfection. March on and fear not the thorns or the sharp stones on life's path."